Chosen one, pause everything for a moment and lean in. This isn't just another video. This is a divine alignment, a supernatural collision between God's timing and your obedience to press play. You didn't stumble here because of the algorithm. You were sent. This is not for the masses. This is for the misfits, the outsiders, the awakeners, the ones who've always known deep down, I wasn't made to live like everyone else. You've spent your life trying to make the old systems work, trying to follow the rules, trying to force yourself to care about things your soul was never wired for. But no matter how hard you've tried to blend in, you can't, because you weren't sent here to fit in. You were sent to shift things. And before we go any further, I want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you to each of you who've supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity helps this truth reach more chosen ones who are still wondering, still waiting for the confirmation you just received. Whether you've given or not, please know, you are deeply appreciated. Just your presence here means more than you know. Now let me ask you something, and I want you to answer it, not with your mind, but with your spirit. Have you ever felt drained just thinking about applying for another job? Not because you're lazy, but because something deep within you knows this isn't it. Have you ever sat in silence after another rejection, another detour, and quietly asked, God, why doesn't this ever work for me like it does for others? If so, chosen one, hear me clearly. You are not lost. You are being redirected. Your path isn't broken. It's set apart. You weren't created to chase job postings. You were anointed to fulfill kingdom assignments. That heaviness you feel when trying to fit into traditional roles, that's not dysfunction, that's divine resistance. You're a carrier of holy disruption. You're the one sent to awaken dead atmospheres, to flip systems that don't serve the spirit, to bring heaven's frequency into places the world gave up on. That's why the rules don't apply to you. That's why the usual paths never work out, because you are not usual. You are chosen. And God's message for you today is piercing in its simplicity. Don't go after jobs. Do this instead. Stop suppressing your gift. Stop treating your anointing like a side project. That burning desire in your chest, the vision that won't let go of you, is not random. It's your assignment. It's the blueprint heaven wrote over your life before you ever entered the world. The very reason some things haven't worked out for you is because they weren't part of that blueprint. You're not broken. You're being built for something higher. Chosen one, I need you to remember, you weren't sent here just to earn a paycheck. You were sent to be a living, breathing reminder that there is more to this life than what meets the eye. And if you've been sensing that this season feels different, like you're standing on the edge of something sacred, it's because you are. You're being called into spiritual entrepreneurship, prophetic leadership, divine artistry, healing assignments, and visionary creations that this world cannot contain in a job description. The old grind won't work anymore. The system wasn't built for you, but the kingdom was. And it's time to rise, not as a worker, but as a builder, a speaker, a teacher, a healer, a seer. Your gift isn't optional. It's the very reason you were chosen. If your spirit has been stirred, if something inside you just clicked into place, if you feel seen in a way you can't quite explain, comment 999 below so I know this has reached you. You're not here to chase. You're here to carry glory, to carry revelation, to carry transformation into every room you enter. Welcome, chosen one. You're not just watching this message, you are the message. God's chosen ones. God said, don't chase jobs, do this instead. Chosen one, let's tell the truth you've always sensed but couldn't quite explain. The discomfort you felt in traditional systems isn't a flaw, It's a divine signal. You've been trying to squeeze yourself into spaces that were never designed to hold your light. Every time you tried to follow the conventional path, get the degree, apply for the job, climb the ladder, you felt a quiet war within you. Why does it drain you when others seem content? Why do titles and salaries never fully satisfy you? Could it be that the road they told you was secure is actually a detour from your real assignment? From the very beginning, heaven had a different plan for you. You weren't wired for conformity, you were crafted for calling. You were never meant to chase job security, you were meant to carry spiritual authority. How many times have you looked around and felt out of place, even while doing everything right? The world trained you early, school, structure, competition, but your spirit always felt out of sync with that rhythm. While others celebrated promotions, you were asking, but what's the purpose behind all this? While co-workers were content checking boxes, you were having sleepless nights stirred by a vision you couldn't even put into words. That's not dysfunction, that's divine discomfort. It's the Holy Spirit nudging you, reminding you that your soul was sent here to do more than make a living. It was sent to change lives. Jeremiah 1:5 declares, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." So, what if that restlessness is the echo of your appointment? Let's be honest. Some of you have been in jobs that look fine on the outside but kill something in you every day. You smile on Zoom calls, you meet deadlines, but inside you're screaming, not because you're ungrateful, but because deep down you know this isn't your final destination. You know you were called for more, and that more isn't about ego, it's about eternity. When Oprah Winfrey left her news anchor job to pursue a format that aligned with her spirit, everyone thought she was making a mistake. But her obedience opened a door no resume could have predicted. Do you feel the same pull she felt? The one that says, "There's a reason I can't settle." Jobs were created to distribute labor, but chosen ones weren't sent to labor for man's approval. You were sent to labor for heaven's agenda. That's why a regular 9 to 5 can feel like slow death to someone who was called to pioneer, awaken, and create. You're not meant to just clock in. You're meant to shift spiritual atmospheres. And that's why your body starts to shut down in certain places. That's why you feel spiritually suffocated under micromanagement or busy work. Ecclesiastes 3:1 says, "To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven." So why do you keep trying to stretch your purpose to fit into someone else's schedule? And here's the part they won't understand. People might say you're lazy, unmotivated, or confused. But they're only seeing your exterior, not the inner battle between your obedience and your environment. What they call inconsistency is actually resistance. You can't fake alignment. You can't stay where your soul is shrinking. Steve Jobs, for example, dropped out of college and was misunderstood for years. But his clarity didn't come from following the crowd. It came from trusting the inner voice that led him to build Apple, something no system could have mapped out for him. So, chosen one, do you trust your assignment enough to let go of the places that applaud you for playing small? Obedience rarely looks productive in the beginning. It looks like stillness, like stepping back, like building in secret. But what looks like wandering is often the straightest path to purpose. Heaven doesn't need you to look successful. It needs you to be in position. What if your gap year is actually your growth year? What if the season that looks like a pause is the incubation of a destiny the world isn't ready for yet? Isaiah 30:21 reminds us, whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, "This is the way, walk in it." Are you willing to listen for that voice instead of chasing validation? The truth is, you weren't created to fit into pre-written job descriptions. You were created to build something no one's ever seen. You weren't made to fulfill someone else's dream. You were made to wake others up to their own. Tyler Perry built his empire from a place of repeated rejection and homelessness. But what carried him wasn't employment. It was calling. He obeyed a vision no one could validate but God. Are you willing to move forward even if no one claps yet? When you choose obedience over optics, everything shifts. That's when supernatural provision arrives. That's when connections appear out of nowhere. That's when you start stepping into rooms you didn't apply for, because heaven recommended you. Psalm 37:23 says, "The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delights in his way." Do you believe your next steps are being divinely arranged? Chosen one, how many times have you felt the sting of being misunderstood by the very people who claim to care for you? You've heard the whispers, maybe even the accusations, that you're wasting your potential, that you're not doing enough, that you're lazy or disconnected from reality. And the harshest part? It often comes from those closest to you, parents who wanted the best for you, teachers who measured worth by performance, or friends who followed the traditional route and can't understand why you don't. But let me speak directly to your soul. What they see as laziness is often something infinitely more sacred. It's divine resistance. What if the very thing they criticize is actually your protection? You were not created to respond like everyone else. Have you ever wondered why your body feels heavy, your spirit low, and your motivation gone when you try to fit into a lifestyle that doesn't align with your inner truth? That isn't weakness. That's heaven intervening. That's the Spirit saying, "This road is not yours. These shoes do not fit." While others jump from job to job with surface-level ease, you stall, pause, and question. Your energy collapses not because you're lacking discipline, but because you were never made to sacrifice your calling for a paycheck. Think about this. Are you broken, or are you being divinely blocked from going the wrong way? The world will always try to measure your worth in productivity. How many hours you work, how fast you respond to emails, how impressive your income looks on paper. But God never asked for hustle. He asked for obedience. And obedience doesn't always look like action. It often looks like alignment. In Luke 10:41-42, Jesus reminds Martha that while she was worried and upset about many things, Mary had chosen what is better. Sometimes the better thing is not movement, but stillness. So ask yourself, are you living to impress people who don't even know your purpose? Or are you living to honor the God who created it? Real talk. People call you lazy because they can't interpret your blueprint. They think stillness is stagnation. But in your silence, heaven is speaking. You are not wasting time. You are being rewired, emptied of the world's programming and refilled with divine instruction. That retraining often looks like withdrawal. You pull away from the noise, the grind, the constant urgency. You slow down. You stop performing. And while the world is addicted to the dopamine of doing, your soul is learning how to simply be. Be present, be surrendered, be available for divine download. Remember Elijah. In 1 Kings 19, God didn't speak through wind or fire, but in a gentle whisper. Sometimes what looks like nothing is actually where God is doing his deepest work. Have you made room to hear the whisper? In a world addicted to speed, stillness can feel like failure. But chosen one, you don't have to perform to prove your worth. You don't need external applause to validate an internal assignment. You are chosen. That alone sets you apart. The very fact that your spirit won't let you grind like the masses is proof that you're on a different frequency. Your mind has been tuned to hear divine strategy. Your heart has been calibrated to carry holy burdens. Your life has been set apart to disrupt patterns, not mimic them. Can the world understand that? Rarely. But must you seek their understanding? Never. So the next time you feel resistance rising in your body, your thoughts, your energy, pause. Ask yourself, is this my disobedience, or is this divine resistance? 9 times out of 10, it's your spirit trying to shield you from misalignment. Because a premature yes can detour a divine destiny. A tempting opportunity can derail your true calling. The wrong job can feel good for your wallet, but destroy your soul. Take the story of Chadwick Boseman. He turned down roles that misrepresented his values, even when he was broke. And that divine resistance eventually led him to Black Panther, a legacy-defining role that changed cinema and culture. Would he have arrived there if he hadn't listened to the inner resistance? Would you? Man-made systems are built for efficiency, but chosen ones were made for revelation, and revelation doesn't arrive on schedule, it arrives in surrender. That's why titles may elude you, why paychecks may seem delayed, why clarity may come slowly. But what you carry can't be printed on paper. You carry heaven's hand, and that's something no resume can replace. Proverbs 3:5-6 urges, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight." Even if the path looks unclear now, could it be that it's being made straight behind the scenes? Yes, this season may feel like you're drifting. You may wake up wondering, what am I doing with my life? But if you're listening to God, even in your quiet, even in your stillness, you are exactly where you need to be. You're not being overlooked, you're being prepared. Delay is not denial. Resistance is not rejection, it is redirection. In the story of Nelson Mandela, his 27 years in prison were not a detour, they were preparation. The same could be true of this moment you're in. Could it be that what looks like pause is actually positioning? You weren't meant to move with urgency. You were meant to move with revelation. Chosen ones rise when the Spirit says move, not when the clock says tick. That rhythm won't always make sense to others, but it will always serve your calling. And if lately you've felt the urge to slow down, rest, or step back, it may not be failure at all. It may be God preserving you. Don't resist the resistance. Don't rush the process. You are not behind. You are being held in divine timing. Chosen one, let this truth reach the deepest part of your spirit. God did not send you here unarmed or unqualified. Before your first breath, before your name was known in the earth, heaven planted a gift inside you. And this gift wasn't a side talent, a passing interest, or something meant to be buried under responsibilities. It was your sacred tool, your divine assignment. You've spent years searching for your purpose outside of yourself, in job titles, in people, in places, in systems. But what if everything you've been trying to find has been within you all along? What if your gift wasn't just a piece of you? It is the blueprint. Romans 11:29 tells us, "For the gifts and the calling of God are irrevocable." That means what he placed inside you can't be taken away. It was sealed by heaven and it still stands. You've likely dismissed it, haven't you? You told yourself, it's too easy, or that can't be it, real work should be hard. But who told you struggle was the requirement for significance? The divine operates not through toil but through flow. That ease you feel when you speak truth, when you create beauty, when you guide someone out of darkness, when you build with vision, that's not coincidence. That's confirmation. That's God whispering, "This is what I gave you to give away." Consider Maya Angelou, whose poetic voice didn't just entertain, it healed. She didn't wait for permission. She gave her gift, and in doing so, she walked in divine purpose. What if you're being called to do the same? The world conditioned you to hide it, to shrink, to be realistic. They told you it wasn't enough, that creativity doesn't pay, that healing can't be a job, that your voice didn't belong in certain rooms. But God's voice overrules all of that. Your gift is not decoration, it's deployment. It's not for applause, it's for alignment. That burden you carry for broken people, the clarity you bring into chaos, the light you carry into dark spaces, that's impact, and impact attracts provision. But no one tells you that when you ignore the gift, it starts to ache. That anxiety, that frustration, that unexplainable restlessness, that's not laziness, that's buried purpose, crying out to be used. It's time to stop apologizing for what God gave you. You don't need a job title to validate your assignment. You don't need a degree to prove your authority. If heaven trusted you enough to put it in you, that's all the evidence you need. David didn't need Saul's armor, he needed his sling. Esther didn't need a resume, she needed obedience. Tabitha, also known as Dorcas, didn't need a pulpit, she used her hands to sew, and her kindness left a legacy so deep that when she died, the people cried out until Peter raised her from the dead, Acts 9:36-41. So, what's in your hand, chosen one? What small, overlooked, buried thing is trying to speak right now? Because here's the spiritual law. If you don't use the gift, it becomes a burden. If you don't honor it, it haunts you. You were never meant to store it. You were born to release it. That aching vision, that sleepless creativity, that desire to speak, write, sing, lead, heal, restore, that's the gift knocking, and it won't go away because heaven didn't send it to sit still. You don't have to figure out the whole path. You just have to say yes to what's already stirring inside. Proverbs 18:16 reminds us, "A man's gift makes room for him and brings him before great men." Could it be that the room you're waiting to enter is locked only because your gift hasn't been unwrapped? Don't let fear tell you it's too late. Don't let age, mistakes, or lost time tell you you've missed it. There is no expiration date on a divine assignment. Moses started at 80. Colonel Sanders launched his empire in his 60s. Viola Davis didn't break through until later in her career, and when she did, it was with fire and truth the world couldn't ignore. You're not behind, you're right on time. God's message to you is the same now as it was before you doubted yourself. Use what I gave you. That's where your peace is. That's where your clarity is. That's where your provision will meet you, not in performance, but in obedience. This isn't about chasing another job offer. This is about stepping into your divine flow. You weren't called to hustle like the world does. You were created to move from inner alignment. And when you walk in that posture, people will find you. Opportunities will locate you. You won't have to beg, plead, or burn out trying to prove yourself. When you honor the gift, the assignment reveals itself. And when the assignment reveals itself, provision follows it. In this new economy, the one heaven is building, obedience is the currency, flow is the strategy, and trust is the investment. This shift you've been feeling in your spirit, it's not confusion, it's activation. The old economy, built on hustle, burnout, scarcity, and fear, is breaking down around you. Those job doors that won't open, they're not your punishment, they're your protection. You weren't made to survive under the world's systems. You were made to build new ones, systems rooted in purpose, movements fueled by authenticity, spaces where people encounter heaven not through performance but through presence. Matthew 6:33 says, "Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you." What if that seeking begins by honoring the divine tool God placed inside of you? Look around. You're not the only one awakening. Prophetic voices are being amplified. Spirit-led entrepreneurs are stepping forward. Healers, mentors, teachers, seers, people like you are realizing they were never meant to submit their light for a salary. They were meant to shine so brightly that others are drawn out of darkness. What you feel is real. The resistance to your old life isn't rebellion, it's revelation. The assignment has changed, and the provision, peace and prosperity you're waiting for. It's all connected to what you've been hiding in silence. It's time to stop burying it. This isn't about reckless quitting, it's about spiritual alignment. Take the first step. Offer the gift. Build the thing. Speak the truth. Share the message. Create the space. Don't worry about how many people it reaches. What starts small in your hands becomes supernatural in God's. The only thing heaven needs from you is a yes. That yes is what shifts everything. Once you say yes to the gift, heaven begins to fund the vision. You won't need to hustle. You'll flow. You won't need to compete. You'll attract. In this new economy, presence is your power, alignment is your strategy, and trust is your capital. Chosen one, the world taught you early to equate survival with struggle, to chase paychecks, equate value with income, and confuse busyness for success. But now, your spirit knows better. Something inside you is waking up and refusing to settle. You were not made to worship the grind. You were made to embody divine purpose. You've been told that the harder you work, the more you'll earn. But that's a man-made equation. Heaven doesn't operate on hustle. It operates on alignment. Provision in the kingdom doesn't flow from effort alone. It flows from obedience. Psalm 37 verse 25 says, I have been young and now am old, yet have I not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. Could it be that your lack isn't from laziness, but from misalignment? You've likely tried it the world's way. You sent the resumes. You took the job that looked good on paper. Maybe the salary was decent, the benefits were secure, but deep down you felt drained, detached, and disconnected. Why? Because chosen ones don't thrive in roles they weren't assigned to. You weren't built to survive off someone else's blueprint. Your soul rebels when it's forced to trade purpose for routine. And that unease you feel when clocking in, it's not entitlement, it's divine disruption. Like Abraham in Genesis 12, who was told to leave everything familiar and go to a place God would show him, you too are being called to move before you see the full map. Are you willing to walk even if you don't have the whole picture? Your provision isn't tied to a job title, it's tied to your yes. You could send out 100 applications and hear silence, but the moment you say yes to what God whispered to you in the dark, yes to the book idea, the healing gift, the message, the ministry, the movement, everything begins to align. Not because you forced it, but because you finally surrendered to it. Oprah Winfrey once walked away from a steady news anchor job because her spirit knew there was more. Her yes didn't make sense on paper, but it opened a door to global impact. What door might open for you if you stop asking, what if I fail, and start asking, what if this is why I'm here? Chosen one, God doesn't fund your fears. He doesn't fund your fallback plans or the safe backup options you built when you doubted your design. He funds what he assigns. And the truth is, some of what you've been doing hasn't worked. Not because you didn't try, but because heaven never authorized it. Isaiah 48:17 declares, I am the Lord your God, who teaches you to profit, who leads you in the way you should go. If you've been walking in anxiety, stress, or confusion, ask yourself, am I being led by pressure or by purpose? Provision doesn't always look like an overflowing bank account at first. Sometimes it looks like daily manna, like strength for today, like peace in the midst of uncertainty. It grows as you grow. It arrives as your trust matures. God often provides in portions, not because he lacks abundance, but because he's building faith. Think about Tyler Perry, who lived in his car for a season. Everyone thought he had failed, but he was planting seeds in alignment, and when the harvest came, it came with overflow. Are you willing to be misunderstood in the wilderness so you can walk in overflow later? You are not a beggar. You are not a hustler. You are a vessel, a divine delivery system. As long as you pour out what he placed inside you, your insight, your creativity, your healing, your leadership, He will pour back in. Luke 6:38 says, "Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together and running over." That means what you pour out, He multiplies. So the real question isn't, will God provide? The real question is, will you release what's already in you? Some of you have been stuck in survival mode for too long. You've been working jobs that numb you, taking on roles that diminish you just to get by. But chosen one, you were not made to get by. You were made to build legacy. Purpose doesn't just keep you afloat, it puts you in overflow. Maybe not instantly, but inevitably. Why? Because purpose generates something money can't. Divine momentum. When you live from purpose, you stop chasing opportunity. And opportunity starts chasing you. Let's be honest. Yes, there is a cost to walking in purpose. You might lose comfort. You might have to walk away from things that look secure, but are actually soul-draining. You might be misunderstood by family and friends who still live by the world's logic. But what you gain, peace, clarity, favor, provision that doesn't run dry because it doesn't come from man, it flows straight from the hand of God. Ruth left everything to follow Naomi into uncertainty, but that obedience positioned her to meet Boaz and step into divine legacy. Are you willing to leave what's familiar to step into what's holy? And yes, people will question you. They'll ask why you left that job, why you're starting that business, why you're creating content, writing books, starting ministries. They won't get it. But you don't need their validation when you have heaven's authorization. John 10:27 says, "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me." That's what you're doing. You're not chasing a dream. You're following a voice. And every time you do, provision shows up in some form. A person, a breakthrough, unexpected resources, divine timing. Always. Why does it show up? Because you said yes. And that yes activated an invisible infrastructure in the spirit that has been waiting for your obedience. So stop trying to see the whole staircase before you take the first step. Just move. Just start. Just build. Just speak. Walk like your vision is already funded, because it is. You're not going to crumble. You're not going to fail. You're not going to be left hanging. You are not just surviving. You are living proof that divine provision is real. Chosen one, what if the breakthrough you've been praying for isn't waiting in some far-off opportunity, but hidden in your ability to unlearn? What if the next level of your purpose has nothing to do with gaining more knowledge, but everything to do with shedding the falsehoods you were never meant to believe in the first place? You've been told that success starts with education, degrees, networking, and job titles. But in the kingdom, the starting point isn't a classroom, it's surrender. The real work begins not by adding more, but by removing the lies that have quietly shaped your identity. Galatians 5:1 says, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free." Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery. And sometimes the slavery is mental, old thinking that must be torn down before new life can be built up. You see, before heaven can construct something powerful through you, it has to first demolish everything within you that was built by fear, control, and deception. Since you were young, the world has trained you to chase safety over significance. You were told your worth was tied to productivity, that unless you were hustling, climbing, or grinding, you were wasting your life. But that is not God's voice. That's the sound of a system designed to keep chosen ones functioning instead of flourishing. It wants you efficient, not awakened, present but not powerful, busy but not aligned. And now, chosen one, heaven is confronting every piece of that false construction. Can you feel it? That tension you've been wrestling with, the spiritual discomfort that won't go away, is not random. It's the friction between who you were programmed to be and who you were divinely designed to become. One voice says, "Keep your head down and stay safe." The other whispers, "Rise up and lead." One voice says, "Fit in." The other says, "You were born to disrupt." But you can't obey both. So ask yourself, which one are you willing to let go of? Unlearning is not easy. It feels like confusion. It feels like things are falling apart. But chosen one, what if I told you that the collapse is holy, that the confusion is sacred? You are not falling apart. You are falling into truth. God is not simply changing your external situation. He is rewiring your entire perception. He is stripping away every inherited belief that kept you small. Romans 12:2 declares, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." This transformation is not optional for the chosen, it's necessary, because God cannot pour new oil into a vessel that clings to old labels. You were taught to ask, "Will this be profitable?" Now you're learning to ask, "Is this in divine alignment?" You were taught to pursue comfort. Now you're being invited into divine discomfort, where the stretching begins and your faith becomes sight. That's why obedience feels unfamiliar at first. It doesn't look like anything you were raised to pursue. But that unfamiliarity is proof you're walking a new way. Just like when Jesus called Peter out of the boat, purpose starts where familiarity ends. Are you willing to step out even if your feet tremble? There will be days when this process feels like madness. You'll question yourself. You'll feel disoriented. That's normal, because your spiritual wiring is being overhauled. You're moving from logic to revelation, from striving to stillness, from panic to presence. That's what it means to live by spiritual intelligence. And spiritual intelligence will have you turning down what the world celebrates and choosing paths that make no sense to anyone but heaven. Just like Noah building an ark before the rain came, you'll look irrational until it rains. You'll begin to say no to offers that once thrilled you. You'll walk away from positions that once made you proud, not because you're confused, but because your spirit refuses to be bribed by comfort. As you obey God's quiet instructions, the path will begin to unfold, not in a sudden flood, but in divine drops. A conversation, a confirmation, a connection, a door that opens when nothing else made sense. These aren't coincidences, they're coordinates. And the more you obey, the clearer the map becomes. You're not just becoming someone new, you're recovering who you were before the world told you who to be. The old programming blocked your vision, but now, as the world's noise fades, you can finally hear God's whisper. You'll begin to see divine patterns in ordinary moments, just like when Harriet Tubman followed invisible guidance through forests and fields, escaping slavery to become a deliverer of others. She wasn't operating on worldly logic, she was following divine instruction, and so are you. Once you unlearn fear, performance, and striving, you begin to move in trust, presence, and divine flow. That's when your life becomes dangerous. To the enemy, to stagnation, to anything false. That's when you become unstoppable. The world will push back. It will call you crazy, irresponsible, or unrealistic. But you were not chosen to continue cycles. You were chosen to break them. And breaking cycles requires courage that most will never understand. Will you still move forward, even when no one claps? So if things feel like they're falling apart right now, if old identities are crumbling and familiar paths are fading, don't panic. You are not losing yourself. You are losing what was never you to begin with. You are being delivered from everything that kept you manageable, palatable, and small. And every piece of this holy breaking is preparing you for the weight of what's coming next. You are not regressing. You are being reset. What looks like foolishness to the world is actually a divine recalibration. You are being brought back into alignment with the blueprint that heaven wrote over your life before anyone ever had an opinion about it. You don't need to chase anymore. You don't need to force it. The moment you fully unlearn what the world gave you, you'll step into a life where you don't chase anything. You attract everything heaven has for you. Because when you're walking in purpose, you're already positioned for provision. Chosen one, the world has wired you to panic the moment you stop producing. It convinced you that your worth is tied to employment status, that you're only valuable when you're busy, booked, or burdened, that to rest or reflect is to fall behind. So whenever you're in transition, the pressure is deafening. Apply, hustle, settle for anything. Just do something. But what if heaven is saying the opposite? What if this pause isn't punishment but positioning? Isaiah 30:15 says, "In repentance and rest is your salvation. In quietness and trust is your strength." What if the stillness you fear is where your power actually begins? You weren't called to follow the world's script. You were called to follow God's whisper. And right now, He isn't asking you to chase jobs. He's asking you to step into your assignment. That means it's time to stop running with the crowd and start building like the blueprint He gave only to you. Can you feel it? That pull towards something that doesn't require a resume, but does require faith. That tug isn't random. It's a summons. You're not unemployed. You're being realigned. So, what does it mean to stop job hunting and start gifting? It means waking up each day and asking a new set of questions. What can I create today that mirrors my purpose? How can I show up with authenticity and offer what's already inside me? Who can I serve, encourage, heal, or guide today with what I've lived through? You're not waiting for a company to validate you. You're learning how to release what's already been confirmed by God. Just like Mother Teresa didn't wait for global platforms before she began to serve, your call doesn't begin with a contract. It begins with a yes. Many of you are sitting on YouTube channels, books, ideas, healing spaces, prophetic words, art, inventions, messages, because the world trained you to distrust what comes naturally. You've been told that your gift is not real unless it pays. But let me ask you this. Who benefits when a chosen one hides their anointing? Who profits when you beg for positions instead of walking in power? Your gift was never meant to gather dust while you beg the world for a seat at the table. The gift is the table. When you start showing up, offering it freely, consistently, and boldly, heaven will respond. People will find you. Provision will follow you. Not because you applied, because you obeyed. James 1:22 says, "Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says." Obedience, chosen one, is your strategy now. Not hustle, not grinding, not waiting until everything makes sense. If God is telling you to record that video, record it. If He's nudging you to offer mentorship, start. If He's given you the green light to launch, even without a full plan, step out. You don't need a flawless blueprint. You need motion, because in the spiritual realm, doors don't open because of resumes. They open when you move by faith. And every act of obedience sends a ripple into the unseen realm. Each ripple triggers the next divine opportunity. This is your time to begin. Not when the fear disappears, not when you feel fully ready. Begin now. Begin with trembling hands. Begin with limited resources. Begin while you're learning. Begin while you're becoming. You are not late. You are in divine position. Heaven's clock doesn't run by the world's standards. And if this message is stirring something inside you, it's because your spirit knows it's time. Just like when Noah built the ark before rain was even a thing, you are being asked to move before the confirmation, not after it. Instead of job hunting, build the altar. The altar is not a physical place. It's the posture of surrender where your gift meets God's breath. And whatever you release from that altar, your voice, your words, your vision, your service, it becomes anointed, because it wasn't done for validation. It was done in reverence. And when you move from that place, you'll begin to attract what others are chasing: collaborations, clients, contracts, clarity, peace, provision, and yes, miracles. Exodus 35:31 reminds us of Bezalel, whom God filled with the Spirit of God, with wisdom, understanding, knowledge, and all kinds of skills to build sacred things. That same Spirit is now activating your hands. You don't need to wait for someone to hire you to be useful. You're already anointed. You don't need a boss to say yes when God already said go. You have everything you need to begin. Teach what you've lived. Share what healed you. Speak from your scars. You don't need a microphone. You need your obedience. In God's economy, the return isn't based on how hard you try. It's based on how faithfully you flow. So while the world scrambles for jobs, you build vision. While others submit resumes, you submit your will. While they chase survival, you operate from overflow. That's the difference. That's how chosen ones rise. You weren't made to blend in with the hustle. You were born to lead from alignment. And when you finally step into that alignment, you'll find yourself unlocking doors that don't even have doorknobs, because heaven opens what no man can shut. Chosen one, have you ever wondered why the world keeps pushing you to look outward, toward jobs, opinions, headlines, and algorithms, as if the answers to your purpose are outside of you? But here's the truth. The real work was never out there. It was always in you. That aching, sacred call you've been feeling deep in your spirit isn't asking you to chase. It's asking you to activate. So let me ask you this. What if everything you've been searching for has been quietly waiting for you to get still enough to notice it? In this season of divine shift and realignment, the most crucial voice you'll ever hear is not the voice of culture, not even your inner critic. It's God's voice. But let's be honest, with everything screaming for your attention, notifications, opinions, deadlines, doubts, it can feel hard to hear him. Have you found yourself wondering, was that him, or was that just me? Have you second-guessed your own instincts, only to later realize that gentle tug was the Holy Spirit all along? Chosen one, God is still speaking. He never stopped. The question is, have you been quiet enough to truly listen? You weren't chosen just to move. You were chosen to move with precision. That means you can't afford to guess your way through this season. You need divine instruction. You need God's actual voice, not another motivational quote. And clarity doesn't come by accident. It comes by intention. Right now, the distractions, the constant comparing, the inner anxiety about the future, they're not just draining you. They're creating static. And static blurs divine sound. Have you created enough stillness for God's whisper to come through clearly? You don't need more opinions. You don't need another course. What you need is stillness. You need space to hear. Because God isn't hiding. He's speaking through your thoughts, your gut instincts, your dreams, and even the tension in your environment. But the more chaos you allow to stay unchecked, the harder it becomes to tell his voice apart from everything else. Think about it. When was the last time you intentionally unplugged, not just from your phone, but from the mental noise? In this chapter, you must become deeply intentional about tuning your frequency. It's just like a radio dial. Get too far off and you get distortion, but dial in with care and the voice becomes crisp. That's how the Spirit works. Clarity born from consistency. Start with sacred solitude, not isolation from hurt, but solitude rooted in intimacy with God. Can you give just 10 minutes a day with no distractions, just silence, where you invite heaven into your stillness? That's where the whispers become direction. That's where questions birth revelation. Because here's the secret. God rarely yells. Most of the time he whispers. Are you still enough to catch it? And don't just wait to hear, read. Scripture is not a relic, it's a live wire of divine conversation. Sometimes the answer you're begging God to speak has already been written, but if you don't open His Word, how will you find it? Hebrews 4:12 reminds us, "For the Word of God is alive and active. It judges the thoughts and attitudes of the heart." When a verse leaps off the page and hits your spirit, write it down. Track the patterns. God often confirms His voice through repetition. How many times has He shown you the same message in multiple forms, but you brushed it off? And what about your peace? Have you noticed how peace shifts when you're out of alignment? One of the most overlooked ways God speaks is through your atmosphere. If a situation keeps disturbing your inner stillness, don't just dismiss it as discomfort. Could it be divine resistance? And when you feel unexplainable peace in something that should feel uncertain, that's often your confirmation. Philippians 4:7 tells us, "And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus." Are you listening to your peace, or are you overriding it with logic? And don't underestimate dreams, patterns, and repeated signs. If you've been seeing the same word show up everywhere, online, in conversations, in prayer, that's not random. That's reinforcement. When God emphasizes a message, He will repeat it until it breaks through your hesitation. Do you notice these signs and take them seriously, or do you brush them off as coincidence? Yes, God will also use people, but chosen one, be discerning. Not every voice that sounds spiritual is sent from God. Some are sent to distract, confuse, or delay you. That's why discernment is your superpower in this season. You were never meant to follow the crowd. You were meant to follow the nudge, the quiet, persistent, holy nudge that won't go away. You know the one that shows up at night when everything is quiet. The one that returns every time you try to run from your assignment. Can you feel it now? Your clarity is your power. Your ability to hear and obey will determine how quickly and accurately you step into your next. And let me tell you, God's not going to shout over your distractions. He waits for your surrender. Are you willing to tune out the noise so you can finally tune into Him? Because when you do, when you truly give Him that space, clarity will come. Maybe not all at once, but just enough to take the next step, just enough to say yes, just enough to move. And that's all you need. Psalm 32:8 promises, "I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you with my loving eye on you." Isn't that what your soul has been craving all along? If something in you is leaping right now, if your spirit feels seen and your heart feels exposed, it's because deep down you already know. You've been hearing God this whole time. It's just time to start listening on purpose. Let every other voice fade until His becomes the loudest. That's how chosen ones rise. Not by noise, not by striving, but by clarity. And clarity is born from intimacy. Chosen one, if no one has ever looked you in the eye and said this with divine clarity, let me be the one to speak it over your soul right now. You are not lazy. You are being led. That heaviness you've been carrying, the fog in your thoughts, the pause in your progress, the quiet ache of feeling stuck while others sprint ahead, is not evidence of failure. It's evidence of favor. You've been set apart to move differently, and different often looks misunderstood. Have you been mistaking your sacred process for stagnation just because it doesn't look like the world's pace? God isn't measuring you by speed. He's preparing you with precision. He's not rushing you toward the crowd. He's guiding you along a narrow path, carved by alignment, not ambition. Yes, that path is slower. Yes, it's quieter. But it's also deeper. And depth doesn't always show on the surface. What if the delays you've been resisting are the very tools God is using to refine your foundation? Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, "He has made everything beautiful in its time. So ask yourself, are you truly behind, or are you just being synchronized with eternity? The refining season is uncomfortable. It often wears the disguise of silence, stillness, confusion, even perceived failure. To those who don't understand divine timing, your obedience will look like retreat. But you don't owe anyone an explanation for your slow season. You don't need to explain your quiet. You don't need permission to heal, pause, or realign. Because when you stop justifying your journey to people who don't carry your assignment, you finally reclaim your peace. Can you imagine how much more clearly you'd hear God if you stopped trying to be understood by the wrong audience? God is rebuilding you, not superficially, but from the inside out. That's why nothing feels the same anymore. The things you used to tolerate now drain you. The ways you used to operate now frustrate you. You're not malfunctioning, you're maturing. Your spirit has outgrown systems that once sustained you. You've passed the point of no return. You're too awake now to go back to spiritual sleep. Have you noticed that trying to go back only increases the internal unrest? That's not regression, that's revelation. You're being remade. The world rewards hustle, grind, and visibility, but heaven rewards obedience, even when it's hidden. Sometimes obedience looks like walking away from what makes sense, like Ruth leaving her homeland, like Jesus retreating to the wilderness, like you choosing rest over panic, or turning down an opportunity that flatters your ego but violates your peace. That's not irresponsibility, that's spiritual maturity. Romans 8:14 tells us, "For those who are led by the Spirit of God are the children of God." So the real question is, are you being driven by fear or led by the Spirit? The tension you've been feeling between doing what's expected and doing what's aligned with your soul is not a sign of failure. It's confirmation that you're no longer living from your flesh. You're transitioning into a season where every step must come from discernment, not desperation. And yes, that depth demands stillness. It demands clarity. It demands that you move, not quickly, but accurately. Can you surrender the need to appear successful in exchange for the call to be spiritually effective? Let me remind you, when God leads, He provides. Maybe not how you imagined, maybe not all at once, but always on time, always enough. Maybe you don't have the overflow right now, but do you have what you need for today? That's provision. Maybe you're not receiving applause, but do you have peace? That's a miracle in a noisy world. God is not preparing you for a sprint. He's preparing you for a legacy. You're being positioned to sustain what others only visit. And that requires a deeper kind of setup. What you build from obedience will outlast anything built in fear. The connections formed in alignment will go further than any opportunity you forced. So, release the guilt. Drop the shame. Let go of the need to prove you're doing enough. God never asked you to impress anyone. He asked you to follow His voice. John 10:27 says, "My sheep listen to my voice. I know them and they follow me." Have you been tuning into that voice or just turning up the noise of self-doubt? And if that voice tells you to rest, then rest. If it says wait, then wait. If it whispers, move now. Even when it doesn't make sense to others, move anyway. Because you weren't chosen to conform. You were chosen to set a divine pattern. And patterns take shape slowly, with intention, with repetition, with surrender. Your stillness is not a waste of time. It's the soil where power grows. It's the space where discernment sharpens. It's where your strength is rebuilt on truth, not trauma. And when the time comes to move again, you won't just take another step. You'll move with force, with clarity, and with spiritual velocity. You won't be striving, you'll be sent. So until then, trust this process. Keep listening, keep aligning, keep obeying, even when no one claps, even when the evidence hasn't arrived. because chosen ones don't rise through noise. They rise through obedience, and obedience always makes room for divine momentum. You are not behind, you are becoming, and that, above all, is exactly what this season was designed for. Chosen one, take a breath right here, because this moment you're standing in is not an accident. It's not punishment. It's not delay. It's divine orchestration. This isn't just a pause. It's a setup, a sacred one, curated by the hands of heaven to draw you into a life you didn't even know you were capable of living. You are being guided by wisdom your eyes can't yet see, by timing your clock can't yet track, and by a spirit that knows exactly where you need to be, even when it feels like everything around you is standing still. But stillness, chosen one, is not the absence of progress. It's the presence of preparation. You are not being left behind. You are being brought into alignment. Every whisper you've heard in the quiet, every tear you've cried when no one was watching, every moment you felt like giving up but didn't, those weren't wasted. They were the blueprint unfolding. You are not being asked to just work for a living. You're being shaped into someone who lives for a purpose. That's why you can't hustle like others. That's why certain things just don't fit anymore. You weren't born to live small. You were born to live called. So, if this message stirred something in you, if it echoed what you've already been sensing in your quiet moments, then let this be your confirmation. You're not lost. You're not behind. You're just being led back home to who you really are. Home to your purpose. Home to your divine rhythm. Home to your true identity before the world told you who to be. Walk in that truth with boldness. Rest in it without guilt, and rise only when the Spirit says rise. Your time is not slipping away. Your delay is not your denial. Your season is not stuck. It's unfolding in perfect divine order. Isaiah 60:22 says, "When the time is right, I, the Lord, will make it happen." Do you trust His timing more than your fear? Thank you from the depths of my heart for being here, for watching, for walking this path with me. Whether you silently watch or actively comment, whether you've been here since the beginning or just found this space today, your presence matters. And if you'd like to support this message reaching more chosen ones like you can donate through Super Thanks. But please hear me clearly. Whether you donate or not, I am deeply grateful for you. Your time, your spirit, your attention, it's already a gift. I bless you right now with peace that transcends logic. I bless you with clarity in your next step, even if the full staircase hasn't appeared. I speak supernatural provision into your life. Provision not just in finances, but in vision, in strength, in divine timing. May doors open that no man can shut. May the right people find you without you chasing them. May your gifts begin to flow effortlessly, and may the fruit of your obedience multiply in ways that shock you. Chosen one, this isn't the end of the road. It's the beginning of a higher one. Keep trusting, keep listening, keep showing up in obedience, because what God is building through you will not just bless you. It will bless everyone connected to you. Until next time, stay in alignment, stay in grace, and stay in motion. Heaven is not done with you yet.